I'm Paula Watson-Laycamp. I am part of the board of World Wisdom's Project, so thank you very much for all coming. For those of you who might be new to us, I have to read this, sorry. The mission of the World Wisdom's Project is to offer opportunities for Northern Colorado communities to individually and collectively ponder the challenges of our time in the context of sacred beliefs and wisdom. That's why I had to read that. That's pretty tough. So this is our second fall program, and we're continuing our series this year on shared stories of spiritual journey. And this program theme spotlights speakers who share their stories, experiences, and backgrounds from their own spiritual traditions and explorations. So tonight we have our featured conversation on the holy and everyday life with Laurie, Gudim, and Sivea and Trinity Wilbourn. So they're going to be our speakers tonight. And in February, our next one will be in February of 2020, and we're going to be talking about where do you find awe and wonder. So that session is going to explore the awe and wonder drawn from science, spirituality, nature, and poetry. And so you can mark your February calendar. It'll be here before you know it, February 6th. I want to thank you all for coming and spending your time with us. And also those of you who gave us a financial contribution. And of course, those of you who work with us and share your hearts. We're having a pre-holiday event. There's a little card in the middle of your table. And it's just a little social to get to know you better and so that you can get to know us better. So take a picture of that or write it down on November 24th. And it's our thank you to our community from us. We'll also be sending out emails about it if you're on our email list. So I especially want to thank those of you who contributed to our spring fundraiser. And we are an independent 501c3 nonprofit organization. So therefore, every penny counts, and we appreciate that. And if you haven't made a donation this year, please think of us in your giving. We also now can take credit cards at the door. So you can give a donation for any amount with your credit card if you'd rather do that. If you're new to us, you can also check out this program and other programs. We always videotape our programs at our website, which is World Wisdom's Project with an S. So, and that is also on Facebook and Instagram and all those other great places. So check those out and look at our past programs because there's really some wonderful ones for your viewing. I'd like to acknowledge our sponsor this evening, First United Methodist Church, for letting us use this great space. Thank you very much. And a little housekeeping. We have refreshments in the back. Feel free to get that at any time. And if you need the restrooms, they are out the door and to the left. And on one side note, our friends at Isaac are bringing Alexia Salvatierra, national leader in immigration justice organizing, to Fort Collins this weekend. And we have some flyers about that event on that back information table if you're interested in knowing more about that program. It's going to be a Friday night and a Saturday hands-on training. So that was a lot to go through. Thanks for your attention. Appreciate it. And now I'd like to turn our tonight's speaker introduction over to Bruce Rhonda. He's our board member and program committee chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. So welcome. Let me add my word of welcome to you all. This program, as you know, is called Encountering the Holy in a Complicated World. And I just want to take a few minutes to describe the agenda, the kind of format that we're going to follow this evening, you can see already that it's a little bit different than we've had the last few sessions. I'm going to say a little bit about tonight's theme, describe it, give a little bit of a background, and then I'm going to introduce the panelists. And I've asked each one of them to speak for about 8 minutes on the topic, to talk about their views of the holy, their experiences of the holy, the ways in which they live lives that connect to that, however they experience that word and experience. And then I'm going to ask the panelists to interact with each other, to ask each other questions, to respond to something that one of the other panelists has said. So hopefully that will take us to about 7:30. And then we're going to take a 5-minute, what I want to call pause, rather than break. Because break suggests that something has ended. But pause suggests to me that we're just taking a moment of reflection. During that 5 minutes, indeed, as Paula says, there's food in the back, and restrooms down the hall. I would like you then, and invite you to come back and find your places again at the table. And what you'll see projected on the screen is a question that we would like you to meditate upon, reflect upon, and talk about around your table. It is a question about your own experience of the holy. And we'd like you to share, to the extent that you're willing, that view with each other. We'd also like one person at each table to become a spokesperson. And so then we're going to go around and ask each one of those spokespeople to summarize or give back to us what your table members have said without naming names. And we're going to ask the panelists then to respond, if they wish, to what you all have said or commented on. And then finally, in the time remaining, always want to be aware that we like to depart around 8:30. We're going to ask you for Q&A if you have questions directed back to the panelists about things that they have said. So that's our agenda for this evening. Last time in September, when we gathered at Plymouth Congregational Church, I began the panel discussion by commenting on what I thought was a particular feature of our shared life, and that is that we live in a time that seems marked by opposition or duality. And I listed a number of places where I see that. I see it in gender roles, in sexuality, in race, in classes, in divisions, based on religion and politics, in the distinction that we sometimes make between the secular and the sacred. After today's news, I think we also should say that we live in a time marked by yet more examples of violence, and this time once again in one of our schools. All of this is, I think, deeply troubling, but I also think it really characterizes our language. And as I and members of the board have reflected on the way that we use language these days, one of the words that comes up often is the word holy. For some of us, the word holy is a useful descriptor of sacred places, important texts, influential people. For others of us, I think, increasingly the word holy suggests sanctimonious or pious or narrow-minded. So even there, I think that in our word we find a kind of division. So today, I'm hoping that by talking among ourselves and sharing our experiences, we can begin to see some commonalities. Some places where holy might mean something different to us, but also means something deeper to us. So that's our hope in our work. Let me introduce the panelists. Paula has already named them, but I'll give a little more information. First, Laurie Gudim. She is a spiritual director and religious iconographer. Her work exploring relationships with the holy through individual encounters now spans decades. She leads classes and retreats on writing spiritual autobiography, interpreting dreams, and living examined life, and facilitates discernment processes for individuals and groups. Laurie, I'm happy to say, is a member of World Wisdom's Board of Directors and currently serves as our Vice President. Sivea Key is co-founder and co-leader of the Institute of Living Universal Values, a meditation group inspired by the teachings of Vedanta Hindu mystic and teacher Sri Ramakrishna. Living Universal Values was a driving force in the multi-faith coalition, which at one time hosted autumn celebrations of the uniqueness and the oneness of the world's spiritual paths. Trinity Wilbourn is founder and president of Arkitekt, a not-for-profit organization focused on empowering women through embodiment, transformation, and activism. Trinity has degrees in music and education and is a member of Actors Equity. And I'm also happy to say she is a member of World Wisdom's Community Advisory Committee. So please join me in welcoming these panelists. But before we begin, let's just take a moment of silence, send our thoughts and good wishes to each other and to the panelists. Thank you.
So, my story begins with growing up in the Missouri Synod tradition. And that's when it was a very limiting view of what God is. And I'm a lesbian. And so my gender identity, by the time I was probably about 13, kind of forced me out of that tradition. I remember when I was just entering puberty, I was walking along the rails outside of the town in which I lived and saying to myself, well, am I a boy or am I a girl? And I couldn't decide. And so finally I said, I'm neither. I am somebody who has no sex. And that was how I resolved it at that time. But of course, that's not where teenage hormones let you live. And so I had to move on from that place. But I remember clearly that conversation I had with myself. Then I went on, I also was exploring a lot of different things in terms of religion. And so one of them was mythology. And I remember I really loved the stories of the mythical characters, the gods and goddesses of the different traditions. I also was really struck by the fact that they're so similar between traditions. But there was a time, there was a moment when I realized that what I was looking at wasn't so much stories as it was religion. And that was when I came across the story of the god Odin in Norse tradition. And he had hung himself from the tree of life, which in that mythology is the center of the world that goes from the land of the underworld clear up to the place where the gods live in Asgard, high above. He hung himself from that tree for 9 days and 9 nights in order to understand wisdom. And it struck me then that this was a big enough God, that this was a God that could not only be brave and heroic and all of that, but who would understand suffering in a way that would give people a container for it. And that was sort of my first realization of what I needed in spirituality myself, is a God that was big enough, that could hold all the things about being human, gender identity issues, suffering, anything. And I realized that the God of my tradition was way too little for that. And so that set me off on this direction of learning what it is that the sacred really means to me, what it is that the holy really means to me. And for me, the word holy, the way I think of it is that it's the wholeness and creativity of the cosmos. And that we look at it different ways depending on which religious tradition we're from. And early on when I was looking at different religious traditions from that point of view and saying, oh, look, there's that one over there that's saying all this stuff and that's really cool, and that one over there is saying all this other stuff and that's really cool. I had a professor who said to me, you know, it's really neat that you're looking at all these things and seeing the validity of all of them. But if you want to grow spiritually, you're going to need to choose one and you're going to need to practice it. Because only by doing that will you learn a depth of understanding of spirituality. And so I, continued to kind of knock around for a while. When I was in Chicago, I was a Quaker and went to a meeting every week, and also had friends who were part of the Quaker commune. And then when I came back to Wyoming, I was a Quaker still for a while, and then my daughter fell in love with somebody who was in the Episcopal Church, her first boyfriend. And she said, Mom, can't we go to church? And so I said, yeah, you bet we can, because, getting kids interested in anything that's spiritual is really hard. And so she wanted to do it, so I said, okay, let's do that. And it was enough like that Missouri Synod tradition that I felt sort of at home, and yet it was completely different in its acceptance and openness and curiosity and welcome. And so I found a good home there. And that became the essence of my, what I call corporate spiritual practice. Which is, worshiping with other people, taking communion. Which I think is a very profound thing. It's one of those, it's a mystical experience. And so that was it on the in the outside world. And then as an inner practice, I began to really explore prayer. And that's where I got into religious iconography and discovered how that is a prayer practice, and how when I can do my art in that way, I pray all the time. And so that really taught me on an individual level what was important. And so that's been a practice of mine for almost 30 years, I think I figured out earlier this evening. I think that the benefit of the practice is that it gives me a way of really engaging with the holy. And it's like a new discovery every morning, and it's like, oh yeah, this is what it is. This is what it means to be in relationship with the sacred. And then the next morning, it's like, oh no, but it's this. So, I have this opportunity to continue to evolve as I go along. And it also, I think, gives me a sense of balance in relationship to the world. Like Bruce was just talking earlier about how divisive and fragmented and isolated a lot of people in the world are today. I have no way of knowing if that's more so or not. It sure feels more so than certainly any other time in my lifetime. And what that drives me to do is hope that other people will be able to find that center that takes them beyond the dualities in life. No matter what it is, no matter what it's called, to find that way of engaging in the world that you feel deeply comfortable in and relaxed in. And again, that's big enough that it can contain everything that is part of your journey. So that's kind of my story, and I'm sticking to it today.
Namaste. This is a holy moment. This, to me, is the moment of being with holy people, with spiritual people, seekers. And for me, that can be inspiring, fulfilling. It can create longing. I wish I could be more of that more of the time. And it's also the essence of our practice, Vedanta. Because in our philosophy, which is based on the Vedas from at least 5,000 years ago, of personal experience, each of you has within you that holy spark. Every being, everything in this world has that holy spark. And anytime we can connect with that spark and help it to grow, that's a holy practice. That's why we're here, to learn to see that spark, to experience that holy light, that truth of what's unchanging and always true. Ourselves, myself, I want to know it. By living my life, I can see I'm not really in control of anything. Things happen all the time that weren't in my plan. And they may be good things, they may be bad things. Even the good things change. The happiness, that moment of happiness changes. The moment when I had a child, a baby, it was one of my life's dreams. That was a holy moment. But right after that, it was struggle and suffering, and a son who had asthma and eczema, and so it was a constant, a very willful child. It was a constant struggle, and it's what I had wanted. It's what brought me forward. And through that struggle, I've become a better person. At the same time, every single day, I try to meditate twice a day. Do I succeed every day? No, maybe half the week. Just to remind myself of why I'm here, and what I want out of my life, and the fact that I'm not just this body, just this job that I have, or just a wife, or a mother, or a daughter. I am the observer. I am that spark. The reality is, all of this is temporary. It's like a dream in a certain sense, in that it can change at any moment. It can follow paths that I never dreamed, that I never thought of, I never imagined. And yet, if I can come back to that spot in myself, that's the observer, that's that light, that's connected to everything else in this universe, that's where happiness is. That's where true joy is. And that's the joy we can share just by sharing that moment, that sense, that feeling that each of you has right now. You can feel it in the room, I'm sure. Because we're talking about the deepest experiences we can possibly have. An intimacy that's rarely shared in the rest of our lives as we go running around hectically, buying groceries, shopping, cleaning, doing our jobs, taking care of each other. That moment we take to recognize that calm, light, center, any moment is a holy moment. To do that in a day is hard. We all know that. We all have goals that are special to us that we really aspire to, and we try to remember them. And then there might be something. You wake up in the morning and the sun's shining in the window. A holy moment. Oh, sun, light of the three worlds. Illumine our minds and sharpen our senses that we may see the truth. A temple in an instant. And the next moment, in the tumult of phone calls, or for me, it's phone calls and emails and contacting and studying, and then all of a sudden, I'll stop. There'll be maybe a breath of fresh air coming in through the window. And I read. Oh yeah, this is another holy moment. This is a spot in my day when I remember what I truly am, who you truly are, and what this is all about, this chaos, this madness, this dashing around and yelling and screaming and murdering and raping. All these things are part of this world, this material world. They're the things that change. There's never anything bright that isn't shown. We can't see the difference of brightness unless we have dark. We can't have love unless we experience not love, hate, anger, selfishness. What is that contrast? What is it we're struggling for, struggling towards? My faith, the result of that journey is neither the love nor the hate. It's the witness, it's the light, it's the eternal. And every now and then, I get a little picture of that. It might be when I'm looking out the window and I see a bird flutter by and it reminds me of the spirit or of dreams or inspiration. Or maybe it's sitting by a river and you know how the water just washes away the tension and it runs over you and creates a quiet, that sound of the water, and it brings you to that deeper space inside of you. That's a glimpse of the divine. And every day is a struggle. Every morning I don't necessarily find that peace in my meditation. Every evening I suddenly remember, oh yeah, that's what I was trying to remember all day. Calm, sit back, try again tomorrow. To me, there's no unholiness in the sense of something that shouldn't exist. Everything exists. Suffering exists. Dying exists. Violence exists. Horrible things in this world exist along with exalted things. And each of those is just part of our journey. It's part of what makes us move forward, move to be better, to be more. And it's hard to remember that that is necessary, that that is the reason we're here in a body, in this material world with all its conflicts, to learn, to grow, to move towards that light and that truth. So thank you all for this moment, this holy moment together.
On the wood, and then to begin to build it from, with an icon, you go from a dark background and build up to the light. And so you start with the base, and then it emerges from that. And it changes as I go. And so being attentive to, at my best, and you know, like you were saying, sometimes the past eludes us. It's just paying attention to the brush stroke and the next brush stroke and the next one until the image feels like it's complete. And then the final step is for me to pray with it so that I can just be with what it's become.
Why do you think they matter?
The images matter?
Icons, why does it matter?
I think it's that, you know, what you're talking about in terms of, well, the language that you use is it's important how we see. It's important. And I think that what an icon does is bring us a concrete invitation to see wholeness, the whole makingness of the world. And so it's like an iconographer will say it's a window to the holy. It's a window to heaven, a window to the realm of heaven. But what that means is that it's an avenue for embracing of the whole, embracing what is in a respectful and honoring way. So I think that's what it is. And they're not, I mean, it's certainly it's a Christian tradition, and so it's not necessarily something that's going to speak to everybody, but it's one way. It's one way in.
There's a broad similarity, I think, if you look at world religions, there's some kind of personal worship, whether it's a star rock for the Muslims, or it's an image of a deity in that faith, or letters, sacred writing. We have to have something immediate. I know I do. When I am low or hungry inside myself, or feeling like I'm buried or I can't get out, the only thing that really draws me forward is love. And we're human. We need someone, something to love and draw us forward. It's like a rope you're pulling. So I think images or icons of any kind are part of our prayer. They're part of what keeps us moving forward.
It's also, it's a way of, it really is a way of seeing. And so it's not only that love connection, but it's a grounding in a certain, like you say, very particular concrete way of seeing. So it helps remind us, you know, helps remind us to pay attention to where we are right now and to move forward in the way of wholeness. I've got in my car, speaking of cars and traffic and all, I've got in my car on the dashboard this little tiny snail, plastic snail. And that snail has a story behind it. But whenever I look at it in the middle of traffic stuff or whatever stuff is going on, I remember the story and then I remember who I really am as a holy being. Yeah.
It's a reminder, isn't it?
So right, yeah, it's a
We
reminder.
scribble little reminders throughout our lives and our days that, oh yeah, that snail, that sunshine, that whatever is going to spark our remembrance of a holy experience or an aspiration or something special to to us, to remind us why we're here and what we're trying to do.
I mean, that's probably what a spiritual practice is, period, don't we think? That it's a reminder, it's a way of reminding ourselves and practicing that different way of seeing.
It's Saint, and I always said it, Augustine, but I think it's Augustine, right? Does anyone know how to say it? Or there's two, or there's more. They're both.
Both pronunciation.
Both ways are?
Yeah.
Okay. Says our whole business, therefore, in this life is to restore to health the eye and the heart, by which God may be seen. Our whole business is to restore to health the eye of the heart, by which God may be seen. Which again, I think is about perspective. And also starts with the idea that we need restoration towards seeing. You know, it's restore to health. That, when I see my children, I don't know if they need the restoring to health as much. I don't think so as I do. I feel like they see way more clearly. But I need this restoration of the health of the eye of my heart. And I think that you're right. For me, there's icons everywhere. I have this little Phoenix necklace that my friend sent me, and I haven't taken it off since this started. The fact that that is my son's name. In the midst of this, our house burned down 5 days before he was born, and that's how he became Phoenix. And now look, I thought that was the fire, right? And it's like, how holy is that as a gift that he has that name? And as a family and as a community, we get to rally around this name and this reminder that like holiness happens through shattering, through brokenness, through ashes, through death, right? And this phoenix is this like lovely symbol that helps draw me back to what is true. And I actually want to say something too about that, even though no one asked me the question. I've been thinking about like, okay, so I don't like land on holy, like it's a wrestling. You know, it's a wrestling to apprehend like I'm going to see things this way. And so I was like, well, what gives you right seeing? Like what clears the eye of the heart? You know, that you, in this conversation, we're going to have round tables tonight. I think we start with kind of how do you see? You know, how do you see? You start there, and then go from there to what am I wrestling with right now in the way that I see, right? And then maybe it's what things help remind me of what's true as I think about how I see. But there's two things that have always worked for me to help me see, and it's people, my community, because they hold up mirrors for me when I can't see clearly, and that is almost overwhelming to the point where I couldn't talk when this room started to fill up because there's so many of you in here that have done that for me for so long, and also so acutely right now that I feel like you just hold this mirror and you're like, I have to remember who you are. Remember what's going on. There is deep magic at work. You are held. You have what you need, you know. And then it's nature. It's this world around us that I think is like, in my faith tradition, the way that the Bible talks about that is like a groaning, that all of creation is groaning and longing and also dancing and constantly communicating, you know, that there's sort of, go back to the Avatar thing, like this vast tree of life manifest in every living thing, going, remember what is true, remember the deeper thing at work, you know. And that helped me. I wanted to offer that because I was thinking, okay, you can talk about how you see, but what helps you see, what helps get the eye clear, and community and nature, and those things, I think.
I think part of it too is that you have to be willing to look weird. You know, it's like when I literally almost talking about the heaven and the bush being on fire, there are moments like that for me, and it sounds like they are for you, and I'm talking about nature. And where I'm just transfixed, where there's just like light on the edge of a leaf, or wind in a certain, blowing through the trees in a certain way, or a pattern in the sky that entrances me. I'll just stop and look. And being willing to do that, being willing to put the voice that says, a voice that says, you're supposed to be at blah, blah, blah place in 10 minutes. What are you doing? Or whatever it is that keeps us from, I guess it's kind of that childlike place that knows, probably, you guys have probably had that experience of being on a walk with a kid, and they're like, oh, look at this, and it's 2 steps into the walk. Wow, that's cool,
It's off to the side, actually.
Right.
Where the caterpillar is. Beautiful
What's
leaf.
this, Mom? And I think that we can reclaim that if we're willing to be foolish.
I think that's really important. Because one of the things we do is bind ourselves. It's like we take ropes and just tie them around ourselves or straitjackets and say, we can only behave this way. This is the only way we can behave. My neighbors would think I was horrible. I didn't bring in my trash barrel right on time this morning. Well, this morning was beautiful. There were crystals in the grass and the light was shining just so. And I wanted that moment. Or my mother needed my attention that morning. That was the time to spend with her. Later on, I'll get the trash bin.
Will you join me in thanking the panel? So let's take 5 minutes of the pause that I described, find some food in the back, come back to your tables, and we'll be projecting the question that we'd like you to think about and talk about, and to the extent that there's one person at your table who could speak out what you have been talking about, that would be great. So, see you back in the So this is our effort to ask you all to participate back by thinking and talking, reflecting on your own experience of the holy, however you define that, however you've expressed it. To the extent that you can share that with each other out loud, I think that around your tables, that would be wonderful. And then we're asking again for one of you to be willing, as the microphone goes around, to summarize and describe the various contributions that people have made without naming names. And then, so we'll do that, say for the next 15 minutes or so, and we'll hear from the tables. And in the time that remains, if you have questions or comments back to our panel, as we did in the first session in September, we would really love to hear you then interact with the panel. But we'll do that at the end. So now, if you could just take maybe perhaps a minute of silence for you to think and reflect on the experience of the holy in your own lives. Write that down perhaps if you need to, and then begin your conversations. Sorry to break into your conversation, but in the interest of time, perhaps we ought to begin to hear from tables about the experiences of the holy that are being shared around those tables. So Cassie is going to be our microphone holder, and she'll go around table by table. So, are we ready over here?
All right, I'll start off. We had a small table, so we just shared our thoughts. And what seemed common to us is that an experience of the holy, while it was our own experience, always seemed to be an experience where the self, where we were maybe less important and what was outside came in somehow. So whether it's a sunrise or it's another human being, that other entity, that other part of existence took over our existence, and we thought those were precious and holy experiences. Sometimes those experiences were just beautiful, sometimes they were tragic, sometimes it's a loss that breaks through to the ordinary boundaries that exist around us. But whenever it happened, it seemed to us that our own consciousness was tapping into something larger, maybe a consciousness that exists already outside of ourselves, and the presence of the other almost merged with the self, and felt good.
Hi everyone. So we have a few minutes to talk about our perceptions of what wholeness is for each other. And because we have different parameters and definitions of what that looks like to us, each of us came up with what really wholeness means to us. And Arlene was saying that wholeness is doing without expecting anything in return. And that makes sense, doing the right thing when no one is looking. Paul feels like wholeness is looking at his bird feeder, the way that nature interacts with the birds and bees and everything in between. But we don't all know what wholeness means to us, so when we're figuring that out for ourselves, it could mean the combination of music and nature and the elements. But I think of wholeness as everyone being here. The reason we all took time out of our day to feel peace within ourselves, with each other, because of all of our lives are hectic and we're lost and we're dealing with pain and struggle and we don't know where we're going. But that's why people go to church, that's why people go to yoga or long car drives. Same thing. It's just to feel that wholeness and that peace for an hour and a half. And maybe that's what will make us all feel whole instead of being divisive.
Hello. So our table had several words that spoke to us. Connection, the present, a deep quiet, a deep listening, the ability to remember. Life is holy, love is holy, the experience of the divine.
Hi everyone. So our table, we shared stories and we shared experiences of what we felt was holy in life, and it's hard to bring it all in, but I think what the essence of it is that there is an energy of love in the universe that we can feel at times. There are special times when this energy of love, whether you call it God or whatever you want to call it, it's there, it's always there, it's in everything, and we've all experienced that at some point in time, and that is what is holy, and we know it, and it's an undeniable and beautiful thing, and I think that's why everybody's here. Probably everybody has experienced that. So, thank you.
Well, at our our table, we didn't get to all contribute. We didn't have enough time, but it was a very personal experience for two of us, and that we wanted to share, and David. And I feel very blessed to be here, and I think you all do too, for this time together.
Cass is holy. She's hiding now. Our table, the children talked about holiness being joy and not just acting like it, which I really appreciated that they knew and they embody here at this table. And the adults, I think in general, talked about holiness feeling like someone standing alongside us together. Maybe that was God, or an awakened heart, or a presence. But it felt holy to sit in communion and listen to them. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Nobody wanted to speak, so I get to do it. I don't think I've ever held a microphone before. We didn't all get to share either, but I think what we really came to is that holy doesn't have to be a huge, big, star-filled experience, but that holy can be on a walk with a child, or holy can be, grasping a necklace or something that's precious to you. Holy can be a space in between when we've been living one way and we're met with something else, and that space right in between is holy. And holy is also a rebirth.
Well, we didn't really get to talk about it, but I kind of got ahead of mine. But endearingly, I think what really came was that it's just the present moment when something happens, whether it's birth, rebirth, sobriety, or laying on the land and just feeling a oneness that you can't even begin to make the words true to. So that's kind of what we came to out of our little piece. Did you kind of? Okay, thank you.
We also felt like holy was very experiential. We didn't necessarily define it, but some of our experiences for holiness was just small moments in the day of noticing nature while going on a run, finding like an internal place of stillness, seeing your children grow up and to lead their lives and to be able to bear witness to that, seeing every spring the crocus come up with no aid of helping it to, seeing those moments that you have nothing to do with, but it still just happens. Being able to behold others within their own relationship and seeing that they can honor each other and love one another. Kind of similar to this table, the being able to find that in-between space that is full of tension and discomfort, but where newness can emerge, and a journey of finding home.
Hey everybody, I'm thrilled to be here. This is just my second time and I'm just thrilled that this group exists. Holy could mean getting more in touch with ourselves, and the more we become in touch with ourselves, we become more in touch with God. It's kind of a reciprocity kind of thing. Kind of like a eternity. Sense of quietness is a time of holiness. I think we all know that. It's hard to do, but to quiet and to disconnect from the chaotic world and to go inside. And also to remember the impermanence of where we are and to be more aware of what is going on around us. And I would say, for me, the most profound recent experience was to be with someone as they were dying. And it did feel like a very holy and sad experience, but I do believe there is more, and he has passed. So I am grateful for that. I'm grateful to be here too.
So for those of us who got to speak, we started with the first one of us who spoke about standing in front of the Western Wall and just hearing everything is holy. And I think that the rest of us who got to speak really proved that to be true in the ways that were meaningful to us. Someone else talking about serendipity when all of the puzzle pieces just fall together. And being here with purpose and meaning. Unconditional love with a sense of safety and security, being in place of just the okayness or knowing everything's going to be okay in this moment. And for me, I think it's being awake to the interruption, you know, and with a willingness to feel the pain and let it change you. And just taking that, you know. And just being vulnerable, you know, all of us doing that here and finding meaning and being willing to have the emotions that come up around hearing all of that and feeling all of what is happening today.
Hi. My notes are very chaotic, so this will be somewhat chaotic as well. So there's the nature piece, and I think the two pieces that came up were hiking and biking, and I sort of heard that merging happens when you're there in nature and doing those sorts of things. Love, birth and death, both ends of the spectrum, love. Interesting crowd flow, so there are some crowds you can find yourself in that are actually quite healing because you're a part of all this movement that's happening. There are others that can be pretty terrifying, but some are very, very interesting experience in being in Cambodia and in a market in the pitch dark with some player. And it's like this, I'm going to describe it and you can help me. It's otherworldly, in a sense. And then for me, as a Buddhist, I was playing around with the word wholeness, WHOLENESS, and holy, which is a different word. And I think, for my own practice, the more holy I am, i.e. less concrete, less filled with myself, then the more holy I experience everything.
Well, our group didn't quite make it through either, but we came up with a lot of the same things that you did: nature, children, being in the moment, having a sense of innocence and curiosity about what's going on. And this one I just loved. We were talking about everyday people doing everyday jobs, but getting through the day with grace. I love that. It's wonderful. Sense of beauty and connection, the feeling that other people are saying internally, I get who you are. The one that caused the most discussion was talking about how we breathe in each other's molecules, talking about sharing. And how some of these molecules have been around since the beginning of time, since the Big Bang, so they're 14 billion years old. So, and we're all breathing this stuff in, and who knows how many people we've all been breathing around all day today. So, just that sense of the interconnectedness of everything on the planet is just, and in the universe for that matter, it was really awe-inspiring. The sense of stillness so that we have time to assimilate what all the rest of this stuff means to us. That all is part of the holy.
One person in our group said that we experience the holy in the process of climbing out of the hole. Experience the holy in the silence, in the connection between people, in the way a special person may reach out and speak the truth without any kind of ulterior motives. In nature, I am more whole. In the ahas of science, in awesome music, in everyone and everywhere.
Okay, our table was pretty experiential also. We experienced the holy, a lot of us in nature. No matter what the news is for the day, the sun still rises and we still can go out there and see the different sunrise or the rain or the clouds or the trees, but we see the holy in nature. And also just noticing beauty and positive things, standing in the redwoods. If you've ever had that experience, it's a holy experience. And we have a substitute teacher who says, going into class in the morning with a bunch of first graders and saying 25 gifts of God is a holy moment. Experiencing the holy through, actually encountering the holy as it brings you what you need, whether that be in nature or through a certain experience or a person or a book, but the holy often brings you what you need. We decided that all is holy, and like this panel said, we need to be able to see that and see differently so that we can see that all is holy, because it is, and sometimes it's a gradual realization. And I experienced holy at 7 years old when my parents used to leave me for an hour at church so I could pray. And I prayed with all the different statues around Mary and Joseph and Jesus. And the other holy moment that happened when I was praying was my little sister was born shortly thereafter, and I thought there's another holy moment. While I was at church, other holy moments were going on.
Thank you all very much. Wonderful insights. And I wonder if, because we have another few minutes, if anyone who didn't get to share around a table would like to contribute any additional thought or expression about the holy.
I just had a helpful aha moment when our group was talking that I've always kind of shied away from the idea of wholeness because it felt like another thing I hadn't quite accomplished. And when we talked about the idea of kind of dissolving ourselves or melding or joining a greater thing, I realized finally wholeness can be being part of the whole. And it's not about having all of my act together or accepting everything here. It's about joining what is already whole and seeing that I'm part of it. So that was very liberating for me.
have never said this before, but for me, after a long life and studying, starting with the beauty of everything, there is a space that radiates from that beauty, and that space is clear and intelligent, and since you're seeing everybody, it's compassionate, and that the empty space in this room is an example of that space that I'm talking about. So, thank you all.
Thank you. So finally, we would ask you to reflect on this evening's program, what you've heard, how it's been organized through these evaluations. And as many of you know, we do a drawing of these evaluations. If you'll leave us your email address, we do a drawing for a gift card, which will encourage you to return the evaluation or return it within 24 hours to the URL that's there on the form. And while you're thinking about that, I also do finally want to remind you of our next program in February. Paula described it, and I'll just say it again briefly. It's a program about awe and wonder in nature science, mysticism, and poetry. I was at a meeting of the presenters for that panel the other day, and just kind of sitting in. And it was striking to me the parallels and similarities and overlaps between the insights that those panelists were already developing and tonight's panel. So if this was enriching and stimulating and thought-provoking, I'm sure that you will find February's panel the same. So it just remains for me to thank you all for attending, for participating, for listening, for being here in a deep sort of way. And could you finally join me once again in thanking our panelists. Drive safely.